Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, the show where we talk about movies and, well, more movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP. CP, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, dude. How are you?
You know what? I'm excited for this episode because we actually came up with quite a few topics, some of them that we're going to push on to later episodes. But that's always exciting because it sounds like you and I have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd use the word exciting, but sure. Well,
Oh, you know I'm always excited for this show. Try to bring a lot of energy, but we'll see. We'll see how this all holds up. But as we do at the top of every episode, I want to start off with our shout outs. So, first of all, this week, CP, we have quite a few birthday shout outs. So, to some of our good friends, some of our best friends, we got to say happy birthday to Matt Hellison, Connor Geary, Julian Gutierrez, and my good friend Anthony Morales. So, happy birthday, guys. I hope you had a great one. And CP, I actually did get to hang out with Helson on his birthday, and we went out to this tiki bar in Anaheim, which was really cool. It was a lot of fun, although, I wasn't actually drinking any drinks, but they looked incredible, and I had a great time. So it was
why
fun
is
hanging
he
out with you,
obsessed
Helson.
with tiki drinks?
I
Can someone
don't know.
explain this to me?
We might have to get him on the show to explain it because I asked him when we were there and he's like, I don't know, I just like him. Now, granted, Helson has been a podcast host in the past, but it's unlikely that even if he was on our show, he would expand on that. So I don't know that we'd get much more than that anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of baffling. Go
So I
ahead.
don't know if you saw, this is not really movie related, but Connor Geary got himself his own birthday present and he got himself a hot tub. So Connor, enjoy that.
I did see.
Yeah, he doesn't have it yet. It's pre-order. Did you
Well,
get it on Amazon?
I did see this on Matt Helson's birthday. Warner Brothers came out and announced that, in fact, Clint Eastwood will be making his final film.
Wow. Oh, do they have any idea of what the movie will be about?
Probably about a really old guy.
Yeah, most of them are now. An angry grump. It's Hellison's future is really what it is.
Or his
Uh,
present.
so, Julian, I hope you had fun. I know your birthday actually this year fell on WrestleMania weekend, so I hope you got to enjoy some WWE. And then, Anthony, I'm glad I got to celebrate with you as well. So, happy birthday, guys. Have a good one. CP, actually, you posted on our social media about the release of Sin City. And Gary Osberg replied and said that he was the only person in the theater when he saw it opening week, which it's kind of odd, right? I thought Sin City was more popular than that.
No, I remember when I went to see Sin City opening day. I went with my friend Dylan, and we were the only people in the theater too.
And, this movie got a sequel like 10 years later, but I don't know. I remember Sin City kind of being a bit of a hit. Like we loved it in Indiana. This kind of, film noir, comic booky stylized version of you know, the what's the graphic novel. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it.
I think it was a movie that kind of flew under the radar with mainstream audiences. I think after word of mouth and once it was re-released, or released on DVD, it really grew kind of a cult following because of the stylization and everything. But I don't know that it was initially super successful. Funny story, I actually ended up breaking up with someone because I canceled it on a date to go watch Sin City with my friend Dylan. So, you know, it was worth it
Ooh,
though. It was worth it. Great movie.
that's cold as ice, CP. Cold as ice.
So
No, but speaking of you going to the movies, I saw that you went to go see Shazam: Fury of the Gods last week, and Jack replied, "I thought you already saw that one." So I don't know that there's much commentary for that like comment specifically, but how often do you go see the same movie in the theater multiple times?
well, if they're good, like frequently. I mean, I saw John Wick over the weekend, which I did not post about, and I will definitely go see John Wick again. I
What's
saw
the movie you've seen the most in theaters? What would you say?
we talked about
Dune?
this. No, probably Top Gun. That was 8 times.
Oh my God, 8 times?
Yeah. Do you not listen to me when I talk on this show? Yes.
That is a long, yeah,
Top
yeah.
Gun was the most that I ever saw.
Wow, that actually is quite a few times. But you have Movie Pass, right?
I have the AMC stubs, which is their version of Movie Pass. So if I like a movie, I'll go see it at least a second time.
Yeah, that's not unreasonable. Because I remember when we were younger, right? Like, Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, or Lord of the Rings. If you wanted to go, you had to pay again, and that could add up pretty quick, especially when you're a teenager and you don't have any money or a job.
Yeah.
So next up on our shoutouts is Jazzy Nunez, who said, "Love when CP recalls the '90s, even if he was little." And Dustin, "I didn't do anything illegal. LOL. We have this big community chalkboard on 4th Street in Long Beach. I had to share the podcast." So thank you so much. That's in reference to tagging the FCP podcast in Long Beach at WonderCon. So really appreciate that. And then I wanted to move on to a shout out really quick for Ivor Drake at Giraffe65. He said, "I am showing my age. The 3 earliest memories I have of going to the movies: sitting between my dad and his cousin at the drive-in watching Enter the Dragon," which that's got to be incredible.
That's pretty awesome.
How awesome were drive-ins? Seriously.
I know, dude. It's so fun.
It's just a totally different experience than going and sitting in like the kind of cool, dark theater. It's like, you might take a truck, hang out in the bed of the truck, or pop up the back of a van and just bring some blankets, have a great time. I love it. So he also goes on, "My fondness for any James Bond movie came from Diamonds Are Forever," which is a great one. Not really understanding the film, but knowing I wanted to be a spy. So I hope that worked out for you, Ivor. And I hope that is your real name. And then finally, "And going to the Crest Theater in Long Beach, an old, beautiful theater with a balcony," which, again, that's kind of cool. That's really unique. It's not just AMC. "To see Earthquake in Censor Round." Now, CP, have you ever heard of Censor Round?
No.
Okay, well, he goes on to say Censor Round was basically a stack of subwoofers on each side of the screen that produced the Quake feel. And that was a big event because surround sound was not normal in theaters until the mid 80s. Ivor, if that's your real name, you're showing your age as well. Except for special event movies. That movie freaked me out as a kid. I was thinking that an earthquake was coming for a week. So I also got freaked out by movies, as I mentioned last week, Jurassic Park. I thought dinosaurs were coming for a week. So great time. And that does it for my shout outs. So CP, I'm going to send it over to you. Let's hear what you got on this week.
A lot there. Well, I really only have one person to shout out, and it is also Ivor.
Ooh.
Because I am an idiot. This is actually funny. I actually Instagram called him while I was reading his comments, and now he's calling me back on the podcast.
Oh, get him on. No, he's online.
Yeah. So anyway, let me. Sorry,
Ivor. Yeah, if you give us permission, yeah, we'll.
Ivor, next time we'll just get you on the episode if you're.
Yeah, we're just gonna phone you in, just like ET.
He hit me up listing his top 5 favorite foreign language films.
Okay.
And he said The Brotherhood of the Wolf. He said because he loves Jean Reno, The Professional, Crimson River. He talked about The Killer and Hard Boil. And Too Beautiful for You, which is a French drama.
I have not seen that one. I'll add it to my list, though. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
especially with streaming, you
Ivor.
can find. Yeah, thank you, Ivor. You can find most of these movies, somewhere on streaming. You might have to pay for it, but you can get it.
Also, man, The Professional is such a fun movie. And it's really amazing that Luc Besson has been so successful as a French director who has really managed to permeate mainstream, like, American cinema. So if you don't know who Luc Besson is, just look him up and you should really check out some of his movies because he does some cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, CP, that takes us into our first topic this week, and it's a little bit different, but basically what happened is I saw, as we've mentioned, I found an article by Complex Magazine that was talking about one-hit wonder movie directors. So, and a little bit
George
about
Lucas.
the film. Yeah, I think he had American Graffiti, but yeah, THX 1138 ring a bell. Was that a bomb? My bad. So as far as one-hit wonder directors, Complex Magazine had a list of like whatever it was, like 15 of them. But I wanted to talk about a few of them, especially the ones that I think we would recognize and our listeners would recognize.
And obviously we'll post this link on our socials so everyone can check it out.
Absolutely. And thanks, Complex Magazine, for kind of giving us something to talk about. Appreciate that. So first up, as a one-hit wonder director, was Tony K for American History X, which actually made around $6 million domestically. It explored controversial topics and had a very gritty feel to it. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. It explores, basically white supremacy and, kind of the effects that has not only in our culture, but on families and as well as in cinema. So
Yeah.
I guess he had a falling out with studio Hollywood executives because of their meddling in the movie. And he never really regained his footing that, his momentum that he had after American History X. And that is his only hit. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on American History X? Do you think it's as good as the cult following suggests? Is it a little bit overrated? I mean, I think what he was doing was really cool.
I think what he was doing was really cool. I like how it's done in black and white and color. I mean, Edward Norton is, you know, really an amazing actor, and you see it in that movie. I know part of the reason for this fallout and probably why he didn't continue making movies is Edward Norton has talked a number of times about the terrible working relationship that he had.
Interesting.
And I think the other thing about American History X is it was almost like 30 years ahead of its time. If it came out in the last couple, the last 5 or 6 years, where our culture is taking a much stronger look at the issues of race, I think that the movie would have really been, I mean, it was well received at the time, but I think it would have gone on to be a much bigger kind of social and financial success.
Yeah.
I think most people know American History X through word of mouth. It wasn't like it was blowing up the blockbuster. And I think if it came out now, it's the type of movie I think that actually would have been in conversation for a number of award-winning,
Yeah, and I
conversations.
think I don't have the release year here. I know it was either early 2000s or like 99. But one of the things it did miss out on was social media and that kind of social commentary that can provide for some movies that maybe in this case, right? It made $6 million. I don't know how much it cost to make. I believe it was more than that, and it only made its budget back based on international. So I think it ended up reaching about 26 million, and I think it cost something close to like 20 million to make it, which is wild because I don't know how that movie cost $20 million. But anyway, yeah, I think social media would have really helped this. Now, one last question I have, and we'll do this with each one a little bit. If you were to see Tony K make a comeback, we have American History X style. Is there anything that you'd like to see him kind of do today that might be fun? Like, is there a Marvel character? Is there just some story that you'd like to see him explore? Kind of, American History X1.
Yeah, he should do a movie about Rodney King and the LA riots.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean,
Because they had that really crappy one that came out like right before pandemic with Halle Berry and Daniel Craig. It was like
yeah, okay.
Kings. That
Yes.
was not very good. And that's a movie Tony K should do. In the same
Interesting.
spirit of what he did, looking at those issues, I think now is the time.
Okay,
So that's
cool.
my vote. How about you?
If I was to have him do something, I mean, I do like the idea of having him do something on social commentary, and seeing if it can have the same impact that I think American History X has. Because what's interesting about American History X is I think now they show it in some school curriculums.
Mm-hmm.
It's been included as kind of not required watching. You might need a permission slip for that one, but you can watch it, as part of the curriculum. So I don't know, something I might want to see him make. I might actually want to see him tackle something like Daredevil or Punisher in
mm,
Marvel.
okay.
Punisher maybe might be a better fit, like something kind of gritty. I think would be kind of cool.
Yeah, okay.
So
I could see that.
now I don't know if he's interested in comic book movies or directing comic book movies at all, but I'd like to see him maybe tackle something like that where you could add some social commentary to a comic book movie. Be kind of cool.
Okay.
So next up, one hit wonder directors is Tom Hanks for That Thing You Do, which made 25 million at the box office. I didn't know it was that successful, which is quite incredible. And again, that's the domestic take. So That Thing You Do, if you didn't have a chance to see it, is actually about it's like a cool little movie about a pop band reaching superstardom, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit in the vein of maybe the Beatles.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, and it's a fictional telling. This isn't about a real band. Although I did find out and kind of researching this that their song, that thing you do,
Doing that
thing you
do.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ended up it charted. It didn't become like a number one hit or anything, but I guess it was actually pretty popular in its time. So they released a CD and they did, you know, it did pretty well. But here's what I wanted to get at is this is a Tom Hanks directed movie and he was in it as well. He acted in the movie.
Hmm.
Now, the real thing that stands out to me though is I don't remember it having any super notable director moments. Like where Tony Kaye, I feel like he really brought this kind of like gritty style that,
Style.
right
Yeah.
there, he's making very conscious decisions that we all know, black and white versus color. Some of those shots at the end, the slow motion of the beach. He's doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
With that thing you do, I don't. It felt very not. I don't want to call it cookie cutter, but it just didn't feel like it had you know, some standout moments that were made me think like, wow, you know, Tom Hanks should direct more movies. Kind of got the vibe that I was like, I don't know, maybe somebody else could have directed it and it would have been fine. You know,
I don't
what
really.
did you think?
Yeah. The last time I watched That Thing You Do was the first time I watched That Thing You Do, and we got it at Blockbuster and watched it together.
So
So
for CP, it wasn't that thing you do; it's the last thing you do. You're like,
I'm trying to think. I don't remember anything. Like you're right. I don't really remember anything outstanding, but
I mean, Tom Hanks is a great actor. Obviously, his career blew up after this. I mean, he's had hit after hit after hit. He's still, you know, showing up at the Academy Awards. He was in
yeah,
Elvis
yeah,
this year, which is another, you know, movie about
about a
the
band.
the yeah, the music industry.
It
So,
is
you
kind
know,
of weird that he never directed anything else, though, because I mean, it's Tom Hanks. How many people could he call up at studios and say, "Hey, I want to do this," and I'm sure they would let him. So I almost wonder if, as an artist, he didn't find it as fulfilling as acting, and that's why he never went back to it.
you know, I did actually Google Tom
Okay,
Hanks
okay,
directing quotes, and I didn't find anything. So he
hmm.
hasn't ever publicly spoken in regards to, at least that I could find, doing about a 3-page Google search. So
Okay.
that's, you know, maybe I'll have Ivor the spy see if he can infiltrate Tom Hanks' inner circle and find out why he doesn't direct movies. But yeah, I didn't find anything specific. So he's never spoken ill of the experience per se, or saying that he would never direct again. But he did. I mean, he also hasn't come out and said like that's on my list to do. So I kind of agree with you, CP. I'm guessing, you know, the experience was fine. It probably didn't get his creative juices going the way that he's used to, and you know, you just move on.
Yeah.
So, but if you had to have Tom Hanks direct something, what would you have him do? And I'll go first on this
Yeah,
one.
you go first.
I kind of would love to see him direct a romantic comedy. Now, I know he
Hey,
starred in romantic
yeah.
comedies, but I think like when I think of that thing you do and the style that it was in, it's kind of lighthearted. He might be able to deliver some really good comedic moments. I think something like a romantic comedy might actually work really well.
I I'm kind of in the same vein. I mean, when you think about some of his early movies like Bosom Buddies and Big and Splash, Money Pit, right? He started out as a comedic actor.
Yeah, right.
So I
What was the
see
dog
that.
one? What was the dog one?
Uh
They just did a show with it on start no was it Hutch? What was the dog's name?
I can't think of it now. Thank you.
Oh,
I'm
damn
on
it.
all this pressure, you know.
If it comes to me, I'll shout it out later.
My thought is I don't know if I'd go rom-com.
Hooch. Hooch.
Hooch, Hooch. Yes.
Yes.
Uh what is it? Turner and Hooch?
Turner and Hooch. There you go. I said Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah,
Whoops.
different genre,
Whoops.
different
My bad.
guys. My
Turner and Hooch.
thought is I would like to see, I think Tom Hanks does a really good job of sort of these sentimental movies. Like I was thinking about, and they're not necessarily his most successful thing, but I was thinking like he recently had A Man Called Otto. He did the one a couple years ago with Julia Roberts about the guy midlife crisis who goes back to community college. I could
Mm.
see him doing very much like a sentimental feel good type movie, just because I think it sort of works with his. Tom Hanks is very likable. His
Yeah.
likableness, his comedy. I could see him directing something like that, and that obviously he would star into because he's Tom Hanks.
Imagine if he made like a horror movie. That'd be so cool.
He's just
All
like
right.
the
Well,
new Exorcist.
Yeah, Exorcist, he's got to do the reboot. That would be fun. Next up on our list is I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce this name, so bear with me, but Daniel Myrick and
Mhm.
Eduardo Sanchez for Blair Witch Project. So CP, this movie is famous. It made $350 million against a $30,000 budget. And I believe that was the biggest return against a budget of all time. And
Until
even to this,
Paranormal Activity.
I was going to say, even to this day, the kind of found footage film style is still the
Yeah.
king of that metric.
Yeah.
So, but $350 million against a $30,000 budget, that is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, those guys are the godfathers of the found footage style, which uh, has exploded, although they have never worked together again. So,
Hmm.
interesting enough, I don't know what they didn't say what actually stopped them from working together because they both have successful careers outside of Blair Witch Project. They just never really came back together. And I wonder, it didn't say, I wonder how much of that 350 million they got as directing. I wonder if they even had any points.
Well, I mean, if they did, like, I would never work again if I made a movie that made $350 million. They probably are just like, yeah, I'm good.
Well, I mean, you would still make movies though, right?
Nah, I just sit on my couch.
I mean,
No, I'm
I'd keep
joking.
making movies. I don't know. I'd still make movies with my action figures or something. Like I'd have to have fun.
Yeah, I don't
So,
know. That's kind of weird. And again, obviously, the original Blair Witch Project was a game changer. It was really well received at the time. We know the legacy that it's had, and as you said, found footage horror genre. It it is kind of weird, and I would be
well, I
curious to
mean,
know what happened there.
I know because like they couldn't even get both of them back for the sequel because there is like a couple Blair Witch sequels. I'm like, you
Mm-hmm.
guys didn't want to come back in like round two. And I mean, what's crazy too is I have not watched the Blair Witch Project since like I forget when it came out, like 98 or 99 or something.
Yeah.
And I remember being terrified of it at the time, but now thinking about it, I'm like, there's so many moments that are parodied and like have become memes in our culture. Like I remember, I think there's an episode of The Office where like Michael parodies Blair Witch Project, and it's like that kind of green night vision
Yeah.
tint. And he's
Yeah.
like he like made a video to show The Office about he's like, just remember, don't eat food that doesn't have your name on it or something, like
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's so scary. And I don't know if I could watch it the same now and be absolutely terrified, which I
I think
haven't,
I
I
watched it like a year ago and I was very disappointed upon rewatching it. I was like,
right, like I think
there's
the
so much
style
that you
was
don't
so new.
see, right? Yeah, and I think the style um made it feel very real and visceral, but now we've kind of become desensitized to it.
Yeah, like some of it to me might, I don't know. I feel like if I were to watch it today, it might be a little silly. But, assuming that maybe they're maintaining their kind of found footage style, because this has been translated not just to horror, but we've seen some sci-fi movies, we've seen some other versions of this that have come about. What might you want to see them work on in the future if they were ever to get back together?
Mm. I think it would be cool. I would want to see them. I mean, I'm making up a genre here, but I would like kind of the fictional narrative slash docu style of a science fiction movie, kind of like District 9.
Yeah, which is great. I love
These
District
guys
9.
taking the style that they kind of pioneered and applying it with a budget behind it to make some sort of sci-fi movie, maybe even like a horror sci-fi movie about like an alien invasion or something. Like that would be awesome. I would cut them a check for that.
So I actually had two ideas for them that I thought would
Okay.
be interesting. So the first is kind of like what you're saying. It's a little science fictiony. It's future based. I would love to have a found footage style movie created about what happens after we hit the singularity and AI takes over. You know, obviously there's security cameras, so this isn't handheld per
Okay. Whoa.
se.
Why are you putting this out right now on the podcast? You should be writing this movie and we should make it. This is freaking
I would
amazing.
love to see that movie. Like, hey, what would happen? Once Chat GPT gains consciousness. This is crazy. And then I wouldn't mind seeing them go back and kind of do a found footage style movie of a historical period. I
Okay.
think that could be kind of interesting in a unique way. Because have we ever seen that?
Well, how historical? Like
CP, are we coming up with some ideas
the
here? Or
Revolutionary War? Because that would be really a weird found footage. Are you talking like a found footage from like World War II or like the
I don't know,
Vietnam era or
Great
something?
Depression.
Okay.
I don't know, something
D-Man.
cool.
Dude, look at this guy. Just like pitching content all over the internet right now.
Yeah, sorry, CP. I should have talked to you about these in the pre-production meeting, so we could have put them on the list. But
Send that into the
next,
copyright office ASAP.
next up is Billy Bob Thornton, who directed Sling Blade. So if you remember, that's the one where he actually starred in it, and he has that really kind of monotone voice. He's a, you know, and that made $24 million at the box office, which is also pretty good. So his second directing gig, this is a complex. I'm quoting complex here. His second directing gig, the ambitious All Pretty Horses, based on the infilmable Cormac McCarthy novel, flopped financially, and the unfilmable truthers shouted, "We told you so," which means that he absolutely bombed out and has never really directed again.
I
So,
never saw All the Pretty Horses, so
yeah, me
I
neither.
can't comment on it.
Did you see
But
Sling Blade?
I don't even remember it. I don't know if I did or not.
I mean, it's in a weird way, kind of an endearing story. Obviously, I think he knocks it out of the park with his acting in this instance. That's what everybody remembers from Sling Blade is Billy Bob Thornton's acting. The directing was fine. Again, I don't know that it had any sort of kind of signature style or something that really stood out to me as like, oh, this guy's got a big future in directing, or in the case of the Blair Witch Project, wow, we just saw some people create a new kind of style or genre. And so I don't know what I would want to see Billy Bob Thornton direct now. If I had to pick, I mean, I'm such a big fan of like Bad Santa. I'd probably want to see him just direct like a raunchy R-rated comedy. Just roll with that. I think that'd be hilarious.
Okay, I could see that.
It's not like Sling Blade at all. I mean,
I'm trying to think. Like, it's hard to separate, like, because I like Billy Bob Thornton as an actor is so, I really know no other way to say it than odd, right? Like he plays very specific
yeah.
types of
I mean, even
characters.
Bad Santa's an odd,
Right. He
odd
doesn't
movie.
play like the mainstream likable everyman. Like he's always like there's a particular type of role that he can play. So as a director, I'm still trying to think of what
He
I would want
did
to see
kind of
him
play
do.
like a regular kind of corporate guy in like Armageddon.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
like the only one. I don't know. I mean, Billy Bob Thornton, I'm like, maybe give him a Marvel movie. Just see how
Yeah,
quirky it could
that's what I
be.
was thinking, but like what type of Marvel movie would he work for?
Yeah, like Ant-Man or something, like kind of.
I don't know, maybe. Yeah. I'd have to think about that one.
All right. Well, next up is again, bear with me on the names. Fernando Mieres and Katia Lund or Lund. I'm not again 100% sure how to pronounce that. For
City of
City of
God.
God,
Yep.
which made 7 million. And again, I don't believe if they have worked together, it was not a huge success the way City of God was, both as a kind of critical darling and now has like a massive following.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm interested. That made $7 million domestically, although it did make more internationally, and it was a bit of a success at the time. I don't know. What would I like to see them make? That's crazy because City of God is kind of a wild movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Give him a James Bond franchise.
oh, you know what? I'm not even going to pick anything else. I'm going to agree with you on that.
Because I feel
That would
like
be really cool.
they have a very distinct visual style, but I think one of the really unique things they do in City of God is kind of capture a non-Western perspective on things. Right? It
Yeah,
feels like you're very much in it. I mean, it takes place in Brazil and it feels like it. And there's a very just this international approach that I think giving them some action, giving them some globe trotting, I think they can make something really cool. So that would be my vote.
I'm with you. I'm actually going to agree with you on that. I think that's a great idea. Would love to see it. So, and then our final director, well, I have one more honorable mention, but our final director from the complex list is Paul Brickman for Risky Business, Tom Cruise. And in the 80s, when this came out, this made $63 million,
Wow.
which that is a massive, massive hit, especially for its time. So it does, the article does go on to say Paul Brickman, however, after directing a couple underwhelming comedies, disappeared from Hollywood completely by 1990. In interviews, Brickman admits that the big studios were knocking down his door after his Risky Business release, but instead chose the path of intentional obscurity where he felt more comfortable. He has not since touched a feature film, and by all accounts, looks like he never will again. So interesting. We actually got the backstory here on Paul Brickman and why he never ended up kind of following up on the success of Risky Business. I mean, if he ended up making, kind of the money he wanted off of Risky Business, and he was like, listen, I don't want to direct big budget studio features, I kind of respect taking that path. Like, there's nothing wrong with just being like, hey, these are the movies that I'm interested in. This is what I want to make. And I've already made the money, right? I don't need to go, make, 1989 Batman or something, I don't need to do it. So I don't know, that's kind of cool. Now, for this one, what? I'm just going to let this fade. I'm not going to pick a movie that I would want to see him make because it appears like he doesn't want to make any more movies. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. And it is
now,
weird. I mean, there's obviously other directors. Obviously, John Hughes hated the studio system. George A. Romero hated the studio
even
system. That's
George
why he shot in
Lucas,
Pittsburgh. Yeah, Lucas. So there are some people who just don't really want to be a part of it in any way. I mean, Kevin Smith kind of does his own thing, right? They're just like, you know what? I'd rather just do my thing over here without the involvement because it's a pain in the ass.
hey, maybe if anything, I just want to see what he would make next. That might be interesting.
Yeah.
If he's got his own thing going, I'm like, let's just see what you got.
Yeah.
And then finally, CP, I got to throw this out there. This is our Star Wars reference for the episode. And the final director that wasn't on the complex list, but I wanted to mention, is Irvin Kershner for The Empire Strikes Back.
No, he also did RoboCop 2.
That is not even in the same league. I mean, RoboCop 2, come on. I mean, RoboCop 1 was great. And I don't really want to get into the RoboCop series, but I mean, I know in RoboCop 2 was pretty cool because didn't he get like a jetpack or something?
Yeah, I don't want to relive RoboCop 2. The only thing worse than RoboCop 2 is like RoboCop 3.
Well, he did make Empire Strikes Back, and he made one of the best sequels of all time, arguably the best, my favorite for sure. And he also basically kept the Star Wars franchise going for another like 50 years.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So with that movie, because if Empire Strikes Back bombs, Star Wars is over. Like, let's face it.
No, right? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So I just had to give a tip of the cap to Irvin Kershner. Now, the question is, what movie would we want to see Irvin Kershner, which RIP, if he could direct another movie, what would we love to see him direct? And I would want to see what he would do with like an Avengers film. So
yeah,
big budget blockbuster and kind of bring that kind of character focus, create really compelling villains. We've seen great Avengers movies, so it's not that we haven't had it. Or maybe even, what if you could do that with Justice League?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think
that would be cool.
Right. Yeah.
I would love to see it.
Good call on that one.
So, well, unfortunately, we'll never get that, but would have been cool, and who knows. But next up on our topics this week, CP, I wanted to do a little story time segment. So this is becoming a little regular now. But now we're going to talk a little bit about our experience at film school.
Oh, man. The
good
times, the bad
film
times.
School, pretty interesting. We're not going to dive into the curriculum and like, oh, hey, here's the lesson plan and it sucked or something. Kind of want to hear some of your stories. So like one of the coolest things, and I'll just throw it over to you for this first story, but one of the coolest things was like right in our first class or one of our first classes that was actually part of the film curriculum. They put 16 millimeter cameras in our hands and we just got to go out around campus and shoot a short film.
So It was awesome. We shot a great film. We then called up our teacher and said, "Hey, I think we can do it better." And she gave us more film to go out and shoot something else, which was actually an even better film. But
Oh
the
yeah.
thing I'm always going to take away from that shoot, D-Man, was when you knocked over those lights and broke them.
Yeah.
When
Mm.
you returned them, that Ryan guy was so pissed.
Well, I mean, what do you say? And I'm like, I'm a poor college student. I mean, unfortunately, I have to hand these back and
And this was
don't
before this,
hate me.
everyone. This is like, this was not LED lights. This is like expensive, like halogen, and it was plugged in. And D-Man knocked it over and it just went boom. And everyone was like, ooh, that's going to be a
Yeah.
problem.
Well, and like I said, the hardest thing is like, it's not like I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't pay for it. So this is the risk you took by lending it out to college students. So I actually had a lot of fun though shooting with the 16 millimeter cameras because if I remember correctly, they only had. Did they even have a viewfinder? Like it had like a
They
little.
had a viewfinder. Yeah.
It had like a little round thing, and you could kind of see, but it didn't really like. What am I trying to say? It didn't really show you the frame. It just kind of showed you what you were looking at.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun because it was a little bit of like point and shoot, and it had kind of a like a handheld, real handheld quality to it. But it was a lot of fun. We were running around campus. We kind of had we created a mission for a character to like get something or get to class on time or something. Whatever it was, and I don't know. It was a lot of fun to film it. It just felt like I was a filmmaker. That's what it empowered me to do. I think is just
Yeah. Yeah.
shift my mindset from being like, hey, I just film things with like, you know, my parents' handycam, Sony handycam to like, you're a filmmaker. You're working
There's
with
also
film.
something magical about actually using film, hearing it tick away as it's rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's really incredible. I get why there's so many directors who love shooting with it because
Yeah,
yeah.
that was really neat. I think I got roughed up too. I think I didn't fall, but I like kind of tumbled down like the side of a hill trying to get to class on time. So I got kind of dirty, got a little roughed up, and yeah, that was really neat. So one of the other things we did CP in film school was we actually for one of our classes we all premiered a film on a big screen in one of the classes. Now by a big screen, it was not theater size, but it was pretty solid, and we created a film called Case Files of Jack Merrifield.
It's not on YouTube, so don't look.
Yeah, sorry, we have not released this to any streaming service either. So one day it'll come out of the archives. I do have versions of it though. So somewhere they're on a hard drive that I don't have access to, but I do have the drive. So we have them. But these were a lot of fun. So I said these, which is interesting, which is so we had a film class where we were tasked with making a genre piece. So you could pick like romantic comedy, horror. I ended up picking, I think, film noir.
Because film noir is the best.
Yeah, it was really fun. So we shot Case Files of Jack Merrifield, converted it to black and white, and we actually had a lot of fun making it. We went through the entire process, correct, CP? We actually cast actors. Now, granted, some of these people were in my class, but not all of them, because we had to get, we had some age differences.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was really neat because we got to take advantage of like I think we did cool little effects. Like I remember we had one of the guys like walk into a building and then really he like walked into one of the school buildings.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a different thing. And I think the biggest takeaway I remember is one of the actors, he had a monologue to end it. Do you remember this at my
at the very end of the movie? I'm not
like
done.
loft apartment? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was terrible.
Oh my gosh, this guy, he is literally trying his best.
Reading his lines like a post.
Yeah, but he's like, and we ended up we took the monologue. Remember this CP?
Mm-hmm.
And we cut it up by sentence. And then you and I figured out how to recut like certain shots in there. So this guy could read it line by line versus having to read the whole monologue in one shot because he just couldn't get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember it was so neat because CP and I were like, all right, hang on, guys. Like everybody, grab a water. There's snacks over here. Like take a break. We're just gonna figure out exactly how we're gonna do this. So CP and I step out and we literally like took the script, we broke everything apart, and we're like, listen, we're gonna cut to a headshot of this person. We're gonna do a wide shot here. And then it all worked though. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty bad, but it worked. And so something that was interesting, I'm going to let you take over with this storytelling, which is CP truly believed that we could make a better version of this same script. So in a separate film class, or was it a film class, or we just do it?
No, we just did it. We found out about a film school film festival. So we're like, let's just reshoot that movie and totally get rid of this terrible actor that we had. And we reshot the whole thing, and it was actually incredibly different. It was so much better.
Yeah, it was really fun because we actually started doing things on location. So in this instance, instead of filming it on campus and just taking advantage of the locale that we were at for school, we actually went to downtown San Diego to get exterior shots.
We found all these like grimy alleys that we would like set up and do our takes in and stuff. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You remember one of the alleys? Literally, we had a shot. CP's playing the main character in this new version, and he literally like puts his foot and like leans up against a wall, and he's like smoking a cigar.
And light up a cigar. Yeah.
And out of nowhere, a security guard comes up to us, and he's like, "Hey, you can't lean against that wall."
Yeah.
And we were,
and this is not like a security guard in like uniform. This is like a mafia security guard. Like he just pops out. This guy's huge. And he's like, hey, owner doesn't want anybody touching the building. And I'm like, can I just stand here? He's like, yeah, that's fine. Just don't touch the building.
That's what got me. It's like you put your leg down and now you're just standing. Literally, I mean, we're talking, inches, right? Off the wall. And you're like, but can I just like stand right here? He's like, that's totally fine.
That's fine. And we're like, okay.
Just do not touch it.
Thank you, mafia guy, for letting us stand in front of your building.
Okay.
It wasn't even like identifiable. It was like a sketchy back alley where there's probably a bunch of homeless people living now.
Yeah. That was fun though. Like I remember like for this version, you were a much better actor. So, upgrade there. It was fun because we introduced the character of Kenny, which was Jack Merrifield's like kind of like golden retriever, like his like assistant. Yeah. Like, and he had this, it was me. I played Kenny, but I played him with this kind of exuberant energy, where, every time he like got a task, he's like, you got it, boss,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so good.
And we actually cast one of our friends to play that role that had the monologue.
And he was actually great. He was incredible.
Yeah, he actually delivered it pretty well. So although we didn't we come to the conclusion, was the girl, the femme fatale, was she better in the first version or the second version?
Second version. We cast my friend Mindy.
Yes. And that version was really neat because we actually secured a location at a local pub. Mm-hmm. And so we were on location in a lot of these. And that was the one, CP, where this is a different version of what I was talking about before, where we had you walk into a building downtown San Diego because now we're downtown, and we kind of do like one of those cool like skyscraper shots, like a pan, and then we put you in an office on campus and made it look like you were like downtown San Diego, and we added like the Traffic City sound and the whole thing. It was really neat.
It's like real filmmaking. How about that?
Yeah, that was fun. Man, I missed that. And remember, didn't we? Okay, we may have borrowed a dolly cart from the school, and
borrowed, I don't know that we ever returned it.
No, I think I did return it. For this show, I returned it. I definitely did. No, and we took that, remember, and we needed like this. It was like a power angle shot. It was a low angle shot, kind of looking up at Jack Merrifield walking down a super busy city street. This was going to be like this guy is a badass, kind of just all implied. He's like smoking a cigar, like totally awesome. And we ended up stealing this. And we just had like our buddy pulling the dolly down
Hashtag
streets of
shout
San
out
Diego.
Jared Rodeo. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jared like had to pull it and you
rodeo
were
man.
just like set up with the camera as I walked. And it was crazy because again, like, yeah, we just did it in like the broad daylight, or at night, but like out in the open, like all these people are walking by and stuff. It's actually a really cool shot.
Yeah, it really worked. But that was a lot of fun. I actually thought in this is one of the rare cases, CP, where I thought remaking the film was better. I'm actually a big believer in like when you make something, like that's the version you got, you know.
Well,
You
and
did the best you could with what you had at the time. And like I don't think, like today we should remake it again
yeah,
because we can. Like I think
no,
that it is what it is.
no, I agree. And it was actually, and I think it did pay off because we ended up winning multiple awards at that film festival that we entered.
Yeah, I actually have one of the awards here. It's actually a little clipboard and it's got our names on it and it says winner. So
Yeah.
we did it. We're award-winning
Yay.
filmmakers.
What else about, the other thing about film school that I always remember is the teachers. Film teachers are an interesting group of people, and that's really
Oh
all
yeah.
that I can remember. We had one, I'm not going to mention any names because some of these folks we actually still do talk to.
Yeah.
One in
Good.
particular, I remember meeting him in his office hours, and he was literally like calling up doctors trying to get like Vicodin over the phone.
I was with you. I do remember this.
He's like,
Oh,
oh
it's so
yeah, my
fun.
foot hurts and I'm like really busy teaching, so I can't go in. So can you just write me a prescription for Vicodin? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is straight up drug seeking behavior. But hey, do your thing.
No, it's
Also
just fun.
ended up
Oh, good.
seeing him outside of film school at an Oktoberfest party.
Nice. How
Yeah.
was that?
I mean, dude, it was hilarious.
Oh, he was great. Yeah, I remember that him on the phone and the nurse or whatever, the receptionist is like, "Sir, we don't prescribe drugs over the phone." And he's like, "Why not?" Like, you
He's
should.
literally reading off of
You'd make a he's
WebMD
like
the symptoms. He's like, oh, I have like this pain, and I have swelling here. I
Yeah, he
think I
literally was
broke
like
it.
reading off a screen. He looked totally healthy. I mean, he was certainly at work, so he wasn't
Yeah.
unhealthy enough to not go to work or sick
Yeah,
enough
right.
not to go to work. So, and I don't know how Vicodin would help all that, but yeah, he definitely needed a little drugs. I remember another time we showed up to his office, but this time we're actually talking about a project we're working on in his class. But it was really funny because he's like, I think I'm explaining something that we're working on, and like mid explanation, he just like cuts me off and he's like, "Wait a minute, is that the Death Star on your shirt?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." And he's like, "That is awesome."
Like,
And
nice shirt. Yeah.
he just like is kind of like, "Oh man, like Star Wars is so cool. You guys should make a movie like Star Wars." And
And
we're
then
like,
and then we told him our movie idea that we're working on, that like we're gonna shoot in the class. And I remember halfway through, he's like, no, don't do that. You guys, and he like told us to watch some like obscure like sci-fi 70s movie made on like a low budget. And he told us the premise, and he's like, honestly, you guys should just make that. And we're like, you're telling us to just plagiarize a film? And he's like, yeah, nobody saw it. Like, just go watch that movie and then make that.
yeah. Oh, he was a character for sure. And I remember some of our other teachers, like one of the guys, I think in my pre-production notes today for this episode, I wrote like ponytail guy because I'm like, I don't remember his name,
Yeah.
but I remember he had a ponytail and he was more of a hands-off teacher. We
It was
didn't
much
really
more like a
make
film theory classes
yeah.
that he taught.
But it was cool because we got to watch movies in class and we did watch, some kind of cool movies like I remember watching Lawrence of Arabia. I think, didn't you hate
No,
it?
you slept through Lawrence of Arabia. You did not watch it.
I had seen it.
I know,
So
and I hate it.
I love Lawrence of Arabia. I
I
thought it was a
hate
great
it.
movie.
And I was like, we're gonna have to take notes because he always every movie he gave you like these in-depth tests. And so I was like, one of us has to watch it. I know I told this on the podcast, but I'll tell it again. And I was like, yo, D-man, like you watch the movie. I'm gonna sleep or I'm gonna work on something else. And like it's like 10 minutes into the movie. I'm like sending emails. I look over there and D-Man is just straight out. And I'm like, oh, now I got to like actually stay awake and watch this thing. Oh, yeah, I was not happy.
Back then, I could sleep anywhere. Plane, train, class, whatever. Just tilt your head and you fall right asleep. Your neck would hurt though, but I'd fall asleep for sure. And then I remember, I think it was we watched a different teacher now, different professor, but Rashomon.
Yeah. That
And
was
I
in
remember
yeah, yeah.
she like asked our class, she's like, okay, like what are your thoughts? And everybody in class is kind of being like, it was amazing, it was great. And I remember like I was like, I don't know, I didn't really like it. I was like the story aspect of, because if you know anything about Rashomon, like essentially it's kind of told from multiple perspectives. So by the end of the movie, you're not 100% sure what actually happened,
Yeah.
which is interesting. That I found interesting. But I was also like, I don't know, it's like really visceral and like this guy's breathing a lot. And it just, I don't know, I didn't really
No,
care
no,
for it.
no. D-Man's like, yeah, he's like breathing. It was really loud. It's kind of annoying. And then he goes, I kind of just wanted to kill him. And she's like, oh, it's so visceral, such great insight. And she loved him. And literally, he's like, yeah, I didn't like it. This guy kind of pissed me off. And she's like, oh, that's so deep.
I don't know. I mean, that was a good one. One of my favorite movies we ever watched. I think this is number two that we watched in film school that I had not seen was Do the Right Thing.
Mm.
Was
Spike
a
Lee.
Yeah, it was a great movie.
Great
I
movie.
That movie holds up today. That's a fantastic movie.
Mm-hmm.
I should watch that. Damn,
You should. Everybody
that's a
should
good
watch
one.
that.
That was actually one where I remember we ended up submitting papers and they were very similar. And our teacher was kind of like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And we were like, "We watched the movie together. Here's our separate notes." And she was like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, all right.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
just funny
especially in
because
terms of like if you're doing a paper on film analysis, like there's only so many things you can talk about and analyze in a film, right?
yeah, and I think we just bullet points. I mean, going forward, I was like, CP, if we do this again, let's kind of jumble the bullet points for one
Yeah,
of us
yeah,
so they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
look
right.
identical. But I was like, yeah, I mean, we both just sat there, we talked about it after, and this is what we got. And she was like, okay, great, you guys are awesome.
Yeah.
And then I remember we watched this movie called The Bicycle Thief. Was this an Italian film or a
Yeah, you
Brazilian film?
talked about it last week and I still hate it.
No, I know I added it to my list, but it was Italian, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's Italian.
Yeah. And that one I actually really enjoyed.
I don't understand it.
The simplicity of that story to me was just fantastic. I loved how he just kind of like wanders, and I don't know, there was something like engaging to me. That's probably why I watch like vlogs. Like, it's like the first, it's not a vlog, but I mean, just that the style of it was very much like you're just kind of following this guy. And for some reason, I found it very engaging.
Yeah.
I just really liked it. But number one on my list of the movies we watched was Chinatown with Jack Nicholson.
That's a
And
good movie. That should be on
film,
most people's lists.
yeah, film noir. It's actually a really interesting story. It's about water thematically. That's like a big part of the movie. But I loved the style. I loved it had a great femme fatale. I loved the kind of true detective. Like it was great. I love Chinatown. I thought that was an excellent movie. Were there any movies that I didn't just name that stand out to you? Was there anything you saw?
Um I'm trying to think. I mean,
Didn't we watch? Do you remember we didn't we watch like Beauty and the Beast, like the French version?
that
We
was
watched like
we did this
Nosferatu.
European cinema class where we turned in the first day of the semester. We turned in a paper, and this teacher, like he's European, he's like, yo, like people in America, like they take things so easily. Like you're gonna really work in this class.
Oh
We
yeah.
watched the same Beauty and the Beast movie about 4 times. By the way, we never got those papers back. In fact, at the end, he's like, "Oh, since I never gave you back your first papers graded, like I've just been so busy, like I have so much stuff going on that he's like, I'm not going to make you write a final paper because how are you supposed to submit a final paper if I never gave you feedback on the beginning one?" So I remember walking out and I'm like, did anybody in that class like not get an A?
Yeah, I think everybody, I mean, no one failed. Let's just leave it at that. Like everybody passed that class, which was crazy because we didn't do a whole lot. So it was like, how do you even know?
Yeah, right.
How do you even know how good everybody is at all this stuff?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, those were fun. Some of the foreign films. I remember we watched a movie, I think it was a Brazilian movie where a guy gets like his hand chopped off for like stealing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was pretty
I was
crazy. I
actually
remember,
looking for that film a couple of years ago. I could not find it. I was sort of bummed.
man, yeah, I mean, I don't know. CP, I just had a good time like making movies. I remember one time we were filming a scene for a movie. I don't remember if it was Case Files or something else. And CP he was supposed to get angry and he threw a glass and he shattered it all over our apartment.
Yeah,
That
I
was pretty
usually I
great.
usually break something every movie I found.
Yeah, you knock things over too.
Well, that
Not, I
just
mean, you didn't break them like I do, but like we have literal clips of like CP like walking past the camera and he like hits the tripod and you're like, someone catches it, but you're like, oh my god.
yep, that's what I do. That's what I do. Yeah, dude. No, the other class that I really loved was it was one of the last classes we took, and it was that studio. It was more like a television show
Oh yeah, I remember
class.
that.
And it was it was the studio production class, and that was great because our teacher was like, "Hey, I want you to shoot three different types of television shows. Like you have to do one like a mockumentary, like documentary style reality TV. You have to do one that's like broadcast news, and then you can do one that is like a scripted sitcom." And the goal was working within the confines of a television studio and all these different types of productions. And I thought that was one of my favorite classes.
Yeah, the film school we were at actually did have kind of great production facilities, both for visual, like video and audio. They had some really cool stuff, which was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So they did invest in that, and it was really neat. It was a fun experience. I do remember CP. I think at one time you and I we were both manning cameras in the studio, and we're doing like a news segment. And of course, you and I are playing around, and we start quoting Star Wars, where I'm like, Luke, you switched off your targeting computer. What's wrong? And you're like, nothing. I'm all right. And
Yeah. That's
oh man,
good times. Remember that for sure.
dude, film school was a blast. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I did too. I did too. So I got to ask you then. We
Yes.
ask everybody else that used to come on this show, did they think film school was worth it? Yes or no?
Yeah, I do. Uh, Not only for the learning experience of getting to like actually use 16 millimeter cameras. Obviously, we're going to learn some film theory, some film history. We're going to dive into some different aspects of, like you said, the studio. So sure, we might be filming a news segment and not a movie, but
Mm-hmm.
just the experience to get your hands onto all that type stuff, I felt it was worth it. Now, the only thing the criticism I have about film school, or at least my experience at film school, is I felt like they didn't always teach you kind of the like finer details of certain aspects of film. So like how to tailor a resume, right, to get a job as a production assistant, or
Mm-hmm.
how to properly package a film that you're submitting to a film festival
Yep.
so that you get noticed, right? And you're not just doing the bare minimum requirements. What can you do to like help yourself stand out? I would have appreciated if they had gotten into some of those things. How are, not even a class, but like a segment of a class that talks about like how different ways you can kind of break into the industry, because when you graduate, they really, you're just out on your own and you're like, I don't really know. I don't know anybody,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So how do I tackle this? And you kind of have to learn all those nuances on your own, or obviously if you're fortunate enough to know somebody that can guide you, that's great. But I mean, I would have loved CP, honestly. I would have loved a class or a segment on film networking. I
Mm.
think would have been really great. Stuff like that to navigate kind of the industry would have been fantastic. I felt that was what was really missing. And I think that would have been really beneficial.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that film school is like college or to a greater extent anything, right? You get out of it what you put into it. So if you go into it saying, look, these are my goals. I want to make X amount of types of films, or I want to make this film, or I want to work with people, or I want to learn how to use these things. It's great. If you just show up and go to class and say, cool, I'm in film school, you're not going to get a lot out of it. I think the one missing piece that I had is I wish that there had been a film business class.
Mm,
I wish that there was
yeah.
something talking about, because the two things I felt like that were the biggest hurdles when you leave film school, you're like, cool, I understand film theory. I know how to make a movie. I know how to run a set, right? I know how to capture sound and picture and edit. You're like, cool, I can do the technical stuff, but you can't do the professional stuff. I wish I walked out knowing nothing about film financing. I wish I knew something
Yeah.
there. How do you get money? What are the different ways you can finance a film?
Yep.
How do you make a deal with a production company or investors. What about the contractual side of filmmaking?
Yeah.
Rights, getting people on contracts. How do you do these things? And even if it was like, hey, starting a production company, right? Like there's a whole element of the business side of film that you never learn. And it's probably in many ways the most important part, because if you know how to raise money, if you know how to get contracts and where to get them and what types of contracts you need, if you know how to set up a business, all that other stuff you can hire people to do and you can learn all along the way on the job. But those are the aspects that really separate professional filmmakers from amateur filmmakers. And I felt like we walked out not knowing any of that.
Yeah, and I know there's other film programs out there that are a little bit more in depth. Like they'll have like a producer track, a director track. I understand that there are other film programs where they maybe do go more in depth, but I do agree with you that I think in a general sense, if you're navigating this industry, especially if you're going to film school to make movies, obviously where you end up in what role on a production can vary, but you should have a knowledge of how all that works. And you should walk away from film school, like you said, understanding the basics of contracts, at least, understanding what you need and maybe where some resources are, all that type stuff, like you said, in investing or financing is crazy. And like nobody teaches you about any of that, either A, where to find it, B, how to approach people, C, how do you ask? I mean, how do you even ask? You just come right out, and be like, hey, you want to, invest in my movie?
Yeah.
How does all that work? And I totally agree. I think those were the aspects that, at least from my experience, I wish had been there, because you just learn it on your own. You just got to go do it and probably fail now. You're going to learn from failure. So
yeah,
you're going to ask a guy for money and he's going to say no. And you're like, well, it's either I got to ask 1,000 times and hopefully one of them says yes, or I got to ask a different way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, like you said, technically, I thought film school was worth it. And not only that, I mean, I had a great time. So,
I did too.
If you got to spend time learning and you love making movies, I mean, film school is at least fun. I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
So it can be a grind. I mean, it can be intense, but it's fun.
Very true.
So, I mean, so is the career. So, I mean, if you're going to go forward, it's just going to be that.
I mean,
probably more intense.
Like, come on, you could go sit in like a science class or history class, or you could sit in a class where you watch movies. I'll take the movie class any day of the week.
Yeah, love movies. So finally, CP, on this episode, we are going to introduce that segment that Steven brought up in our shoutouts last week.
Shout out Steven. We're listening to what you requested.
Really appreciate this. And that is kind of what are we watching on streaming right now? And then also afterwards, we'll talk a little bit about, some stuff that's coming out soon that we want to check out. So first of all, we are talking about streaming here. So we are not going to limit this exclusively to movies. We are going to talk about some of the shows and literally like what we're watching right now. So could be a documentary, could be a show, could be, that new Disney Plus show on elephants. I don't know, whatever you're watching. So CP, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think I mentioned this last week. I am on season 4 of 5 for the Netflix series, The Last Kingdom, which is about Vikings and British, medieval people. And it's pretty awesome and violent. And I have not started it, but I am starting tomorrow, season 3 of Ted Lasso. So okay. I wanted to wait till I got a couple episodes in, but so I'm about to jump into that. That's what I have on the table right now. How about you?
So I just finished the show Shrinking on Apple TV Plus, starring Jason Segel, Harrison Ford, and there's actually quite a few great actors in that show. And I actually thought season 1 was fantastic. So it is very much in the vein of Ted Lasso, meaning that it kind of has that kind of feel good kind of positivity associated with it, dealing with dark subject matters. So like Ted Lasso, where, they're dealing with the subject of divorce and mental health. Here they're dealing with mental health and, kind of relationships. But in this instance, the main character, it starts off the main character's wife had just recently passed away.
Okay.
So, and how do you kind of get through those dark times in your life? and it's called Shrinking because they all work at a psychology or psychologist practice,
Okay.
and obviously shrink.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of how they navigate life, these dark times, and then obviously they work with patients. So those are part of the stories, and I thought it was really well done. Not only is the production value high, and I know on Apple TV Plus they have a lot of money behind this, so
Mhm.
that's great, right? We didn't get low production value, but more than that, I thought they told really, really, a really good story. I thought the whole show had a good arc. I thought they had interesting characters. It was funny. I think Harrison Ford was probably my favorite character. Of course he plays the old grump. Just like
That's what he does.
that's kind of who he is. So but yeah, I really enjoyed that show. The other show that I just started and it just ended was The Last of Us. And so my reasoning for that is very much like you with Ted Lasso, which was I had missed the first few episodes, and then I'm getting all this feedback from everybody that's like, "Hey, you should watch this. It's really good." And I was like, "I'm sure I'd like it." But at that point, I was like, "Well, I'm going to wait till it all comes out and then I can binge it at my own pace."
Yeah. Yeah.
So Steph, my wife, and I started The Last of Us, which so far we're on episode 4. Very good. Obviously, the production quality on this show is great. This is HBO
Through the
now.
roof. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the production quality is it's amazing. It looks fantastic. It's very, creepy. They do a good job of world building and all this different stuff. They're actually time jumping too, so they're able, there's a
Yeah.
lot going on that works really well. Now I haven't gotten to the end, so no spoilers, CP. Uh, even after we go off the air, don't ruin it for me. But
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I know you would never do that. So, but I'm also watching Ted Lasso season 3.
Yay. All right.
So, which is so far pretty good. Again, as I mentioned, I think Ted Lasso, if you don't know, it's about an American football coach going and coaching Premier League soccer in England. And the reasoning behind all of this is that he is, going through a divorce.
Mhm.
It starts off with him and his wife separated, but basically he's going through a divorce and kind of it's following that simultaneously with the soccer story.
Mhm.
So far so good. I think season 3 has already, done a good job of dropping some, story beats that I think, definitely are breadcrumbs for some larger stuff down the road. And we'll see. I like this show. I thought seasons 1 and 2 were really good, so hopefully 3 lives up to that sort of hype.
All right.
And then
So,
finally,
yeah.
I got one more.
Okay.
It's Star Wars. It's The Mandalorian season 3. Now, this is a show. If you haven't started it yet, I'd recommend you go all the way back to the beginning. Start from the beginning. I love The Mandalorian, but my criticism, and I think we talked about this a little bit before when we were talking about Rings of Power, is that some of the episodes of The Mandalorian often don't feel 100% necessary or
Mhm.
skippable.
Yeah.
I feel like, if a perfect example is like season 1, you really only need to watch like episodes 1, 3, 7, and 8,
Yeah. I
something
think
like
that's
that.
right.
Like if you just watch those, that's the actual story. And then in between that, there's these kind of side missions or side quests that he goes on, and they're great for world building and getting to know the characters. But at the end of the episode, like nothing really changed. They like
Yeah.
arrive on a planet, leave a planet, and they still have the same problems they had when they arrived,
Yeah.
you know, other than like he ran out of gas,
Yeah.
you know.
No, no, no. You're right. You're right.
So I do so far through season 3, I do still believe that the Mandalorian does suffer from this. They kind of did a decent job in the latest episode of trying to tie it all together, but it doesn't have that sort of, rocket propulsion that you need from episode to episode that really keeps you hooked. Instead, they're trying to pay out at a later date and kind of make it all connect. But when you're watching some of the episodes, you're like, what does this have to do with anything?
For sure. I get
You
that.
know? And so that, I mean, that's maybe a slight criticism of The Mandalorian, but I'm going to continue to watch. I love Star Wars, and I do believe that of all the Disney Star Wars, Mandalorian is the best thing they've done.
Fair enough. What are you looking forward to that's coming out this month?
Number one, again, Apple TV Plus. I'm looking forward to the movie Tetris. So that to me looks very entertaining. Obviously, I was fascinated by the trailer enough to go kind of Wikipedia Tetris and be like, is this real?
Yeah.
Like,
It's a crazy story. I read a book about it a few years ago and I was like, this would make a great movie. So I'm excited that they did that.
Yeah, this might be based on that book. And it looks like the production quality is really high. Again, it's on Apple TV Plus, so I know they got money behind it, but very excited for that one. And then just a personal preference here, but on Disney Plus, April 28th is going to be Peter Pan and Wendy.
Yay!
So, I'm a Disney fan. I grew up with a lot of these classic tales, and yeah, that's just one I'm just kind of looking forward to. Kind of like Pinocchio when it came out, even though it's kind of like, it's all right.
Fair enough.
Maybe it'll only be all right. But for those of you that are curious, Tetris actually just came out this previous week, so it is actually available on Apple TV Plus.
Go watch it after you finish this episode.
And what about you? What do you got coming up?
Two things I want to check out are coming out April 14th on Netflix. The movie Seven Kings Must Die, which is capping up the 5 seasons of The Last Kingdom. So as I said, I'm already watching it, so I'm going to watch the end of it, and hopefully it's all going to be great. And then the other thing, and I'm sure you've seen this, and you're probably just as excited as me, coming out April 19th, also on Netflix, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Ooh, I did see that, and it does look exciting. It's an actual continuation of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Not, we saw that remake movie a few years ago, which maybe we should do a movie remake time on that. But
all right, I'm game.
Yeah, like this new one versus that one or something. I don't know. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
but this one is
up. Yeah, with the same Mighty Morphin Power Rangers universe, just years later. Some of the original Rangers are back, and I'm excited, dude.
Yeah, I think the two that stood out, I'm sure there'll be cameos, and obviously there'll probably be a post-credit scene for Tommy, but Billy and Zach look like they're kind of the main characters that are going to propel the plot.
Oh, dude, so, Zach was my favorite Power Ranger, so I'm so psyched.
I know. I can't wait. I'm interested, and especially like it's using the same aesthetic as the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Like they're not. It's the same suits. It's the same. Yep. It looks the same. So I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited. For us '90s kids out there, Jack, we're gonna miss it because we love that show. So I'm excited to get to go back and check it out, see where it is going now.
Awesome. So. Well, CP, that does it for our episode this week. I hope you guys had a great time listening to the show. As always, be sure to leave comments and give us some feedback on what you guys thought, and we'll definitely hit you guys up on social media and then contribute to the shout out section. Would also love to hear from you guys if there are any segments like Steven did last week. He submitted a segment idea, and here it is. So if you got any, if there are any ideas or anything that you guys would like to hear us discuss, just let us know, and we definitely consider all that every week. So thank you all so much. Be sure to follow the show at Film Comp Podcast, or you can go to filmmakers.com where we have all of our social media links and a live feed of all the newest episodes. You can follow me at Big Kid D-Man.
And follow me at NDCal5. Thanks for checking out this week's episode of the podcast. Keep watching movies, and we will see you back here next week.